was talking with my friend, and she was telling me how she cannot sleep properly. That is, she sleeps for like 12 hours a night, but she doesn't feel rested after waking up. And that's been going on and on and on. And she also has issues with her joints. She has joint pain, muscle pain, overall feelings of being overwhelmed, anxious, and she's also dealing with some water retention. And if you find yourself with similar symptoms, you might be dealing with the same issues that she is dealing with, which is the beginning stages of chronic fatigue syndrome. But if you're interested in all of the symptoms that can occur, you can watch my previous video where I talk about all of the symptoms that can occur when having chronic fatigue syndrome to check whether this is something that is relevant to you or not. And I'm going to give you the advice that I gave her. Of course, I don't know your personal situation, and her situation may not apply to what's particularly going on in your life. But what I do find oftentimes is that people who deal with chronic fatigue syndrome have a same type of pattern of issue. So while you might not be dealing with the exact things that she's dealing with, you might be dealing with something very similar that you can kind of apply these pieces of advice to your own situation. In general, if you're interested more in this topic of chronic fatigue syndrome, I am making a series, and I have already posted in the previous months a lot of different topics. I mean, the topic is chronic fatigue syndrome, but I'm talking about different parts and aspects of this illness and dealing with it. So if you're interested in checking that out, I have a playlist where all of these videos are included. So let's get into the advice. The first piece of advice that I have: you need to take a break before your body makes you take a break. When you don't stop, when you ignore your boundaries, when you ignore the signals that your body is screaming at you to stop, and you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and working more and doing more and just stretching yourself out so thin that you cannot take it anymore, your body literally shuts down. You become bedridden. You cannot function. You do not have the energy to deal with anything. So much as like opening your mouth to say a sentence can just be so overwhelming and not possible. So, now that you're just in the beginning stages where you are feeling tired and exhausted, take that as a very serious warning to stop whatever it is in your life that is going on that you feel like you need to work more and more and more for. If you become essentially a disabled person, you won't be able to do what you need to do at all. So do some type of compromising and take some workload off of yourself. So for her, she is doing a lot of overtime work at her regular job, and on top of that, she is doing overtime work for her personal business project where she wants to create her own company. And while that's amazing, and it's great that you're such a dedicated worker you not have the energy and the ability to work on your own business, but you won't have the energy to work at all, and then you will definitely be in trouble. So it's very important that you take a break. And, that does not have to be literally going on vacation if that's not what you want, if that's not what is possible for whatever reason, but just let yourself work less, whether that's actually taking a break, taking sick leave if you're able to, or working in a less panicked manner, not internalizing your work as a reflection of your self-worth. So how much you can produce is not how much you're worth as a human. You're inherently worthy because you exist. You would not exist if you were not worthy. It might seem scary to underperform, especially if people are used to you being on a certain level. But, you need to take care of your health first and foremost, because this is a specific illness where, it's not medically recognized, it's not properly diagnosable, it's not properly curable. Like, doctors don't know what to do with people who come with these symptoms oftentimes, and even if the doctor believes you and understands you, there's not much that they can do to help you because they're not trained in how to deal with this. Unless, of course, they're personally interested in this topic and then they know, but that's very rare to find, of course. So, if you have a more serious level of development of chronic fatigue syndrome and you're actually not able to work, people are going to be so much more disappointed in you because you officially won't be considered sick, because probably your test results will be fine and everything will be fine, but you won't feel fine and you won't be able to function. And people will just, a lot of people don't have the capabilities of understanding and empathizing with you because they can't comprehend it. It's not talked about enough, it's not recognized enough, and we're getting there, we're getting a little bit better, but it's still something that is very stigmatized, and people view something that is called chronic fatigue syndrome as you just being lazy and not being, ambitious enough to, push through some uncomfortable moments, and that is completely false. And, quite opposite of what the reality is. So, being overworked is definitely one huge factor, and people can be overworked in many different areas of their lives. You can be overwhelmed with your family life, like if you have to take care of children and that's solely your responsibility, or if you have to take care of a loved one in general, or I don't know what other obligations people have in life, but whatever your area of being overworked is. Oh, even hobbies, people can get so hyperfixated on the things that they love that they push themselves so much for, just for the wish to finish your project in one night or something like that. So whatever it is that's overwhelming you, that you're constantly pushing your boundaries for, that is what needs to be relaxed and reevaluated somehow, for you to reorganize that area of your life, for you to label yourself differently, because we tend to give ourselves these roles and these labels, and then when we don't meet our own expectations, forcefully, let's say, then it hurts even more. You're even more lost. You're even more helpless. And it makes things so much worse. So try and, raise your consciousness levels of where you are at and who you are and how worthy you are without being this overachiever or this person who has to deal with everything and take everyone else's, baggage and whatever your thing is. Calm it down, okay? Because no one is going to be happy when you have just pushed yourself beyond all limits and now you cannot be a functioning member of society, okay? Say, for example, when we're talking at work about, overtime, people tend to say, like, well, it's paid overtime, it's an opportunity, take it. I believe that there is a certain level where it's just, if I work overtime, all of the money that I earn for the overtime, I'm going to have to redirect to all of these doctors that are going to have to, help me be functional. I'll need a whole team of doctors to help me with all of the issues that I will develop because I am working so much. So there's no point in earning more money if they're going to be redirected straight to your doctors. The next thing that I was telling my friend is to leave the toxic relationship that she is in. She has for years been in a relationship where the person that she is with is putting her through a extreme emotional roller coaster. So he's not abusive and he's not evil. He doesn't do things because he wants to make her suffer. He has his own issues and reasons why he behaves the way that he behaves. But that's not a good enough excuse for when you have given the person that you're with multiple years to work on themselves, to be a better person, to grow and to deal with their issues and their problems. You have given them grace, you have given them time. If they're not showing you the results, if they're not putting in any effort, it's not worth for your health for you to stay with this person. Because when you're dealing with a person who has unregulated emotions and who puts you through highs and lows, extreme ups and extreme downs, your nervous system is constantly on pins and needles waiting for the next wave. Your nervous system is waiting to get that amazing high that you love, that is making you stay with this person. Because you're thinking to yourself, well, this person is able to give me such amazing highs. They have so much love to give. I should be able to withstand the lows because the highs are worth it. But actually, maybe it would even be better if they weren't able to give you such great highs, because then it would be more manageable for your nervous system to deal with. But this way, when you have high highs and low lows, your nervous system is constantly waiting for the threat to happen. So it's literally like being on drugs. You're searching for the high and you don't know how to get it because the person's behavior is unpredictable. So it's not like one certain behavior from you or a reaction or something like that. It's not going to always guarantee the same reaction from this person. And so you never know what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. And so you're never able to truly relax. You're always anticipating the next sake of everyone. Because again, if you're not good, there's just no point. What's the point of a relationship with this person if you're not going to be healthy, right? Health is the main thing, and then everything else comes after that, because we can't enjoy anything when our health is not at least solid, right? So if you're in a relationship where you're experiencing these types of emotional roller coasters that are constantly making you anxious in what's going to happen next, know that you don't get a reward for suffering more than other people, you know? Your love isn't deeper because it's more painful, and it isn't deeper because you're able to withstand so much pain. You are just basically harming yourself for some ideal that just doesn't need to happen. Love comes in peace. Love doesn't need drama to be fulfilling, and it doesn't need roller coasters of intensity to be impactful and to be profound and to be deep and to be out of this world. Like, love comes from a place of peace and willingness to share your life with someone, to share yourself with someone. So, you can love someone and set them free, and if they want to be a better person, if they want to be with you, if they want, if they want good for themselves, they will work on themselves and they will come back, if that's meant to be. But it might not even, you don't even need to focus on that part, like whether they'll come back or not. The important thing is that you keep your own health. And in general, not even just romantic relationships, whichever relationship you're in, if you have issues with your parents, with your siblings, with your relatives, with whoever you're living with, if they're not treating themselves right and they're not treating you right, you just need to remove yourself from that situation. And it's of course much more difficult when you're actually dependent on this person, when that person is dependent on you. Like, let's say you have a child or a elderly person or a sick person or something like that. Those situations are much more difficult, and you then in those cases need to find some type of boundaries that you set for yourself to not be affected by those people's actions, right? But I'm not going to get into that now because that's so much more nuanced and more heavy. I'm going to stick with this, where you're not dependent on the person, it's just your choice because of love and because of these, complicated feelings that come with these types of relationships, where you choose to stay even though it's very, very easy to leave. Like, you're not being threatened in any way, you're not dependent on this person in any way, and they're not dependent on you. It's a matter of choice, because those things are also very common. We tend to engage ourselves into situations and feel like victims. Sometimes we're not aware enough, sometimes we're not brave enough, sometimes we're just too tired, we're too overwhelmed, so many things happen, life happens. But this is my reminder to you to, realize that you you have you forever. For the rest of your life, the only person that is guaranteed in your life is you. And no one should take better care of you than you. And then everyone else in your life is just icing on the cake. It's amazing to have friends. It's amazing to have family. It's amazing to have a partner, a romantic partner. Those are all amazing things, but you need to be there for yourself first and foremost. So, now that we've talked about more general life issues, let's talk about some more practical, simple ways how you can prevent chronic fatigue syndrome developing further. The most important thing is to take time to do nothing. So you don't have to meditate, but sit down with yourself. At home, at a park, it doesn't even have to be quiet where you are. Just sit and observe. And don't try to force anything, to think anything, to not think anything. Just exist. And exist for as long as you can. In the beginning, it might be very infuriating to sit and do nothing, but try and push yourself. A couple of more minutes each day. Say start off even with 30 seconds. If a minute is too much, start with 30 seconds and build from there. There is no specific goal, whatever works for you. Just, it would be amazing if you could hit a 30-minute mark. If you can do more, that's great. But just, relax. Of course, if you want, you can meditate. Another thing that I tell my friend, because she wants to have a certain body, she wants to have a certain image, she really overworks herself in the gym. Yet another place where she overworks herself, right? And, with our beauty standards and the pressures that we face in the aesthetic realm, truly do push people to do some things that are very much not healthy. I've seen so many of these influencers who have seemingly amazing bodies, and what you would think they're the epitome of health and strength and so on and so forth. They starve themselves, or they deprive themselves of calories, which are kind of the main way carbohydrates are the main way your brain is being fed, and the brain, of course, is very important. Brain health is very important when we're talking about dealing with chronic fatigue syndrome, because the nervous system and the brain are what is communicating and creating all of these symptoms in the first place. So when we're dealing with recovery from chronic fatigue syndrome, we're looking to heal the brain. That's kind of the main goal, the first thing that we're looking to do. So, you need carbs, you just need carbs. And what people often misunderstand is people think that carbs are bad because, we perceive carbs as something that comes from unhealthy foods, but carbs are in fruit. And then we see that fruit has a lot of sugars, has a lot of natural sugars, but we associate sugars again with bad food, with junk food, with candies and so on. But your body does not process processed sugar the same way it processes sugars from fruit, particularly because fruit has a lot of fiber. So when you eat fruit, even though it has a lot of sugars, the fiber calms down the processes that usually make sugar spikes, like your blood sugar spike. So also, your fibers help speed up your metabolism in the long run, because they actually slow down your need to eat is healthy and is good for you. And you know what? Whatever floats your boat, but the amounts of coffee that these people are drinking are literally because they have no energy, because they do not eat carbs, and carbs are fuel. And they feed your brain, and when the brain isn't working, then there's no point in anything else going on because the brain isn't working. Another very important thing is that people nowadays work their butts off at the gym, and that is also not as healthy as you would think. Of course, going to the gym is more healthy than living a completely sedentary lifestyle, but at the gym people usually do stationary workouts, like they will stand and very controlled. They will do very controlled movements. They will work on a certain muscle group, and it will be a very, standing still and lifting something in from a perfect position. And building muscle is great. The more muscle you have, the more fat you'll burn, because your body needs a lot more fuel to keep your muscles, big and functional, right? So it's going to seek energy from fat because you're already working on your muscle, so it can't be taken away, right? For energy, so your body's going to look for your fat to take the energy primarily. So working out and working on your muscles and on your strength is great, thumbs up. However, you should look for exercises that work your whole body and work in dynamic motions, because you don't need weights, you don't need that heaviness. Important thing is doing stretches, doing dynamic workouts, doing dynamic strength training. So what you'll do is you'll engage your entire body and you'll use your body weight, but use movements that include flexibility, strength, mobility. Of course, if you're able to, you don't need to push yourself in any regard, but that's not the point. You should do nice, energetically high, but low impact things like beginner Tai Chi or beginner yoga. It does not have to be anything advanced, aggressive. Do things in moderation, because your main goal is to relax. You should find time in the day to relax. Do not do anything, and scrolling is not doing anything. Watching YouTube is not doing anything. That very much is a thing that your brain is processing. Every reel that you scroll through is a decision that your brain needed to make, whether it wanted to watch the video, how long it's going to watch the video for, processing what the video is about, dealing with the emotions, and then moving on to the next video and repeating and repeating and repeating and processing so many different emotions that just come in few second intervals. That is very exhausting and overwhelming for your brain, and that is not doing nothing. You need to do nothing sometimes. The next thing is running. She loves running, and again, just like working out, running has some benefits. Running is great in the sense that sure, you'll get your cardio in for the day and things like that, but running is actually very much a stressor on the body, just like building muscle is. But, running is, I would argue, even worse, because when you run, your body does doesn't really know that you're not running away from something, because running kind of entails that you're either chasing or you're being chased, and it just doesn't relax then. It makes processes in the body to push you to do stuff, push you to be able to get through what it is that you're running from or that you're chasing. So your nervous system is suffering a lot when you go on runs. And what I say, because she really loves running, is go skipping. But like go skipping like a child skipping. You're literally like, la 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 la. Literally like skip like this with your arms, like swinging your arms like that. And then jumping around, like jumping, 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 jumping. Literally do that, because if you're skipping and jumping, that is signaling to your body that you're carefree, and yet you're getting the cardio that you want, and you're moving forward. Now, sure, socially it's weird to skip, but, if you're afraid of being judged, skip when there's no one around, I guess. I would advise against running for people who suffer with chronic fatigue syndrome, and in general for people who suffer with nervous system issues in particular. Another thing that I recommend is working on your posture, because I know that she has issues with her pelvis being pushed forward, like looks like she's bloated when in fact she's not. And why I say work on posture, it's not just for the aesthetics of it. It's actually because when your pelvis is pushed forward, like when it's like pushed forward, then everything in your body compensates for that, and your diaphragm is being pressed by your ribs and your stomach, because you're kind of like your front part here, your core, is being crunched over because it's being pushed. And when your diaphragm is, compressed, you can't breathe in deeply and you can't breathe out deeply, and that's very important for your nervous system, but also for the entire, functioning of your organism, because of your life, your body, because on one side, the nervous system, when you cannot breathe in deeply and you cannot breathe out deeply, your nervous system cannot activate the parasympathetic nerve, and you cannot relax, because if you can't take in a deep breath and you can't exhale enough, that means that you're kind of in a rush. You don't have the time to do a deep breath. You haven't reached the point where you can do a sigh of relief. So your nervous system is getting the signal that things are in distress. You can't breathe properly, so you're constantly in a tiny little dose of distress, and the more that keeps going, that the breaths aren't deep enough and the exhales aren't deep enough, you're prolonging the level of how much how much your nervous system can take the apparent threat that it is perceiving because of not being able to breathe properly. But then on the other side, we have the actual circulation of oxygen through your blood. When you're not breathing in enough, your blood isn't carrying enough oxygen to all of your organs. So over time, your organs don't function properly because they don't have the energy, the oxygen to do their job properly, and then things become toxic because your body isn't doing the proper waste management. Let's say the oxygen levels that are reaching your liver aren't good enough. Over time, the liver won't be able to detoxify your body properly, and you will be slightly poisoned more and more throughout the years. Same goes for the kidneys and just things that are all interconnected. If you have any posture troubles, like, you should really take some time out of your day, like 5 minutes a day if you can't do any more, to, work on fixing your posture. Then, of course, another thing is diet, but I've already kind of gone through explaining how important fruits are in a diet for people who are struggling with chronic fatigue syndrome. Like, you shouldn't diet in the sense of like restricting yourself from foods. You should have a good balanced diet and just a good balanced lifestyle overall. Do everything in moderation. The important thing is to cut out processed foods, unhealthy foods, junk foods. If you can cut them out completely, that'd be amazing. I already did a video talking about junk food addiction and chronic fatigue syndrome. Check that out if you're interested. Very important thing is like, do things that you love, do things that truly make you happy. Stop and think, like, what really brings you joy? What is the thing that you love to do, even if it brings nothing? Like, it doesn't matter when you're doing this thing that you love. It doesn't matter whether you succeed or you fail at it, because you're loving the process of what you're doing. Those are the things that you need to do to calm your nervous system down, to not constantly chase something, a end of something. Just exist a little bit. It's, you don't need a checklist, you don't need anything, just exist, just be, just allow yourself to be. Take relaxation as seriously as you take all of the other tasks that you usually do. And with all of that being said, I thank you for watching. Leave a like,